Good morning, folks, and welcome to the annual Hotel Hurricane Preparedness meeting via Zoom. We've done this in a variety of ways over the many years that we've done it in person, but it seems that Zoom has really proven to be the most effective method. We have more than 230 folks that have confirmed and registered for this morning. And for those of you that may not know, we do this in partnership with the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, who I work for, Rolando Aedo, the Chief Operating Officer. In a moment, you'll hear from our CEO, David Whitaker, and of course, with the Greater Miami and the Beaches Hotel Association, you'll hear from Wendy in a moment. And of course, we do this in close partnership with our City of Miami Beach and Miami-Dade County partners, and you'll be hearing from all these amazing speakers momentarily. Quick housekeeping before I turn it over to our speakers. There's going to be, of course, a Q&A session. Please just simply drop questions in the chat. We will be monitoring that, and then at the tail end, we'll go ahead and go through the chat, and any questions that come up, we'll bring it back and we can ask any of the speakers in front of you. Please stay muted. Everyone should be muted now, except the speakers. But of course, at the right time, you can unmute for the Q&A session. We'll keep that in mind. Today's session, as in past sessions, will be recorded and will be made available to all registrants. So, and we encourage you to please forward to some of your colleagues and team members as well. So, with that said, let me get out of the way and set up. Let me introduce David Whitaker, President and CEO of the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Thank you, Rolando. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time. I encourage, as Rolando said, I encourage you to ask questions. Put them in the chat. We'll have a good, robust discussion at the end. We've got a lot of subject matter experts on this call who can answer those questions. The more questions you ask, the more we all learn. So do not hesitate to ask any questions. You know, if this were an in-person meeting, I would have a show of hands. I would say, how many of you, this is your first hurricane preparedness meeting? You know who you are. This may very well be your first. I would have asked, how many of you, is this your first year in the current property you're in, which is a whole different, perhaps a whole different structure, different location, different plans, different size, different scope. And again, a number of you may raise your hand. I would ask you, how many of you are veterans at this and, you know, have done this 15 years in a row? Complacency can come from being a veteran. We've been blessed to not have had a major, direct, significant incident. We've had some close calls, which also impact our visitors, by the way. But there is a fear of complacency when you go 8, 9 years. Ryan Phillips will educate us a little bit about that. But there's only one thing that really matters, and that's our customer service. We'll have visitors here over the summer, and they will start hearing about, and the news will start perhaps even over promoting, but that's getting everybody aware. But then there's going to be lots of questions from our hotel customers, and they're going to be asking you a lot, and your staff a lot of questions. So the more we can help you get prepared, the more you can be able to help your customers, give them that reassurance. These can be short-term events, close calls. They can be major events, and then there's an awful lot of planning that needs to go in case some, heaven forbid, something actually does happen and we have a major event with damage and hotel guests have to be relocated. So there's a lot of things in the chain of command, a lot of information that we want you to have. So I'm going to get started by really just encouraging you to learn what you can, take this recording, share it with your staff. Don't hesitate to follow up with us or the Hotel Association after the call so that we can help you be prepared. Also on the call today is our partner and leader, Raquel Williams. I'm going to turn the agenda over to Raquel, the acting city manager of Miami Beach. Miami Beach is our largest coastal community. So, of course, unfortunately, hurricanes in Miami Beach are even more vulnerable than some of our inland properties just simply because of their location. So we appreciate the city of Miami Beach's preparedness. They have an outstanding team. They will be a great resource, especially for our beach properties as well. So with that, Raquel, thank you for your time and leadership, and I'll happily turn it over to you.
Thank you, David. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the ongoing partnership of the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau together with the City of Miami Beach. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to address our tourism and hospitality community, especially since we are gathered to talk about hurricane preparedness, a topic that our city takes very seriously. As a destination that attracts global visitors, we have a duty to make sure that we're prepared for every foreseeable event, whether it's weather related or not. We want to be as agile as possible so that we can tackle anything that comes our way. We're a strong, collaborative, and resilient community, and that's because of the partnerships that we have with our hospitality industry. So you all make us who we are as a city. Together, we want to make sure that we are prepared. And to do so, all of our departments year-round really have a partnership going with all of our business partners. So whether that's our police department, our fire department, public works, marketing and communications, tourism and culture, we're all pitching in year-round to make sure that in times of need and crisis, that we can come together quickly and effectively. What gives me so much comfort is knowing that this amazing camaraderie exists and that we collaborate on an ongoing basis. So as a city, we try to maintain our quality of life and we try to ensure public safety for everyone, whether those are folks in our workforce, our residents, our visitors, our customers. And to maintain this status as a world-class city, we really have to constantly prepare. We have to test, we have to implement, we have to pivot sometimes, and we appreciate being able to do that with you, all of our partners. So thank you for being here today and recognizing the importance of hurricane preparedness. We want to make sure that we're in communication with you at all times. And so if we don't have the contact information for your leadership, please make sure that by the end of this meeting that you find a way to connect with us and ensure that we have your contact information. Thanks again, and I'm confident that we can make each day better than the day before, and that collectively we can prepare, mitigate, and adapt no matter what challenges come our way. At this time, I'd like to transition now to a brief video from Miami Beach's Honorable Mayor, Stephen Minor.
Hi, Raquel. Thank you for the introduction. As mayor, it's my responsibility to ensure that our city is well prepared for any challenges that may come our way, especially during hurricane season. I firmly believe that this is not a task that we can tackle alone. It takes an entire city. We are comprised of dedicated individuals and organizations, all working together to safeguard our residents, visitors, businesses, infrastructure, and environment. Our partnerships with the GMCVB, the Greater Miami and the Beaches Hotel Association, and our county emergency management partners are invaluable. Our Miami Beach Fire Department Division of Emergency Management also plays a crucial role in ensuring our community remains safe in the face of adversity. I take immense pride in prioritizing public safety and security. Nothing is more paramount than ensuring our residents and visitors are protected, and it is my duty to uphold that trust. I also want to extend my thanks to the county and city teams for consistently exceeding expectations and promoting and supporting the hospitality community. Thank you all. Together, we will weather any storm that comes our way.
I want to thank Raquel for her leadership, the city under the mayor's leadership. And again, as Mayor Minor indicated, this is a countywide initiative. You know, unfortunately, the pin of a needle, the storm could be impacting the Keys, and it still has an impact on our hotel guests. It could be in North Miami Beach, Sunny Isles. It could be in Fort Lauderdale, but it still will have an impact on our county guests. So that close coordination with the county is so critically important, including the command center they operate, where there are help desks and including the Hotel Association and your bureau. We are constantly there manning the telephones and making sure that we're in constant communication with our hotels, because it can get quite unnerving when the hours before and leading up to a major event. So the better prepared we are and the closer the coordination, the better. So like I said, we'll send this link out after the meeting and it'll include all the different messages from our leaders. The mayor obviously has a whole team of people that focus and work with us and work with the hotel community. Speaking of partnerships, obviously Wendy Kalergis, our partnership with the Hotel Association on great days and difficult days. And so again, it's great to have their preparation. Wendy, thank you for your leadership. I'll turn it over to you, Wendy Kalergis.
Thank you so much, David and Rolando and everybody on this call. We really appreciate our partnership. The early season offers us the time we need to strategize and organize. We are very fortunate to have the full attention of our mayors, government leaders, and emergency management from the city of Miami Beach and Miami-Dade County. To our hotelier, Ryan Phillips stated, and I quote it every year because I love it. I think it's great. With the anticipation of another active hurricane season, the preparation we report today will serve us tenfold should we need to take action tomorrow. To our GMs and our executive teams, if you have not already done so, please have a plan in place for your employees, management, and owners for your properties. Our beachfront, poolsides, and coastal hotels must have storage, accessibility, and ready to store outdoor furniture, potted plants, and all loose recreational items. And now it gives me great pleasure. We're going with Ryan Phillips, right? But now
Yes.
it's in my agenda. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a great partner and friend, Ryan Phillips, broadcast newscaster, WTVJ NBC6.
Okay, Wendy, thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to jump right in here. And thank you, Wendy, for yielding your time to me. I'm going to try, if you've joined this seminar before, I tend to go pretty long, but Wendy wants me to make sure I tighten it up today. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to start first with an overview of the hurricane season. This is a satellite image from 2004. You remember that? 20 years ago. This was Hurricane Francis. And I think David made such a valid point. We can't physically, be together to raise hands, but you should give some consideration. I'd love to see the room, who is at their first hurricane season at a new property, or how many veterans are out there. And, it's been a while since we've had an immediate threat, but this season, like every season, we have to be prepared for that possibility. So let me advance here and get going. There we go. One main concern I have that's residual from last season, which was the fact that it was an active season, but not once did we in South Florida end up in the forecast cone of uncertainty. So that just dials down our awareness because we were able to skate through the whole season without a direct threat. In fact, last season, though, it was an active season. It was the fourth active on record with 20 named storms. We only had one landfall. Of course, it was Florida. It was Hurricane Idalia in September in the Big Bend area of Florida. But again, going through an entire season with no threats to South Florida, it's great. We don't want that. We know the impact to business. We know the impact to our economy. But to also go through a season without an immediate threat also dials down our awareness. So we're no stranger. If we go back to the last 31 years, we've had some very close calls. We've had some immediate and direct impacts. Of note, you think about Matthew in 2016, which stayed offshore, but certainly had us buckled down and paying attention. Dorian, which came awfully close in 2019 over the Bahamas, really too close for comfort. And then, of course, I don't need to tell you about 1992 and Hurricane Andrew. So we have multiple systems that have crossed paths within 125 miles of Miami Beach. But as was mentioned already, we don't need to see an immediate and direct impact to Miami-Dade County to have residual effects because storms are large. And so there can be impacts far and outside of where the actual center of the storm crosses, that even if there's not a direct landfall in Miami-Dade County, which we don't want, we certainly need to be in the mindset that we may have impacts that may easily trickle down to our guests. The forecast cone is a very useful tool, but we're actually trying to get away from it. The hurricane season of 2022 and Hurricane Ian making landfall there in the Florida southwest coast. What the takeaway there is that our forecast was good, but because things were happening outside of the forecast cone, folks began to not pay as close of attention. Well ahead of the storm, tropical storm watches went up for coastal Collier County all the way down to Marco Island, and then north into Lee County, and the forecast tightened up as we went, but everyone was so hyper-focused on the cone. So the cone is useful 3, 4, 5 days out. But when we get closer to impact, the cone does not matter. That's why there's going to be a change this year in August. The National Hurricane Center will begin to de-emphasize the cone and put more emphasis on the impacts. In particular, where are the watches? Where are the warnings? What are we looking for in terms of surge, rainfall, wind impacts? The cone will be pushed down even though it's what gets everyone's attention initially, its emphasis will be pushed down and will bring up the emphasis of the impacts. And that's been something that's been in the works for a long time, but the Hurricane Center will move and heavily advance that agenda starting in August. And it's all for sake of just clear communication to our users. There is a question in the chat going back to Hurricane Irma, which I hope that we'll get to at the end of our session today. I want to remind you, though, I found this is a very big talking point in the sessions and in the talks I give, that Irma made folks believe that, okay, I got prepared. I did what I needed to do. I made it through okay. I had some wind gusts. I had some broken tree limbs. I went without power for a little bit. We prepared for a hurricane, but we did not go through it. In coastal Miami-Dade County, we experienced sustained tropical storm conditions with hurricane force wind gusts. And those were impactful, obviously. And the whole buildup to Irma obviously put a strangle on our community because of the uncertainty. We prepared for a hurricane. We experienced a strong tropical storm here in South Florida. So don't let the benchmark of what happened in Irma for your sake of preparation and then what happened with the storm's eventual impact. Don't let that set your bar as to what it takes to be ready for a storm. But that's really our last close call here in South Florida. We've got a lot of traffic across the region, but Irma was really the last storm that we were really dialed up for. All right, the seasonal forecast. I just want to emphasize this before I get into the numbers. The forecast that you'll see, not just in the last few weeks, but through the coming summer months, they speak to the total activity of the season. So we're talking across the Atlantic, across the Caribbean, across the Gulf of Mexico. These are not predictions for landfalls. We do not have the skill to predict how many landfalls there will be. Remember, last year was an active season. We had one U.S. landfalling hurricane. What's unfolding, though, across the region, if you watch there in this lapse, this is from April to yesterday. Look how warm the sea surface temperatures are getting across the Gulf waters, around the Bahamas, along the Keys, south of Cuba, and then also into the eastern Caribbean, into the open tropical Atlantic. We're running several degrees above average. And that was very much a contributing factor to the active season that we experienced last year. So there are two main points that we'll emphasize as to why we're seeing so much activity on deck for this year. It's because of this warm sea surface temperatures and the expectation that we'll move into a La Nina pattern. Now, I know it's early in the morning. Nobody wants to look at charts and graphs like this, but here's the takeaway. We have a 70 to 80% likelihood that will be into a La Nina mode at the peak of the hurricane season. La Nina tends to have more, allows for more storms to develop. There's no question about that. But when we're intersecting the idea that the environment is just right for storms to develop, and we're using very warm sea surface temperatures, and we have the juice out there, that lends itself to an active season. And that's what we really need to lean into for the coming season. Back in April, Colorado State released their first forecast, and it was just off the charts. 23 named storms. Remember, last year we had 20, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. And again, you weigh that against the average here of 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes in an average season, and 3 major hurricanes. So that it stands out. Now, just last Thursday, NOAA released their forecast for 17 to 25 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, and 4 to 7 major hurricanes. So we see, and by the way, NOAA has never issued such an aggressive forecast. So is this going to be a repeat of 2020 or 2005 when we had Wilma and Katrina? I can't tell you that, but the environment for this hurricane season is primed to produce, and we're ready. And it's not just those entities. If we look across the board at 22 different seasonal forecasts, they're all well above average, with at least an average of 11 hurricanes developing. Again, I can't tell you where they're going to go, but we can tell you that the season's going to be active. And as mentioned, if there's a tropical threat, even if it's just a tropical storm, or if there's a major hurricane tracking across the Atlantic, through the Caribbean, through the Bahamas, our guests will seek information. And it's very important that you think ahead how you will manage the information delivery to your guests for their sake of safety, for their sake of confidence in their stay here in South Florida, and for what will happen in the sequence that we need to take action, or how we will bounce back right after a storm passes. So those are just some ideas. Please feel free. I'll stick around for the chat here, but if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a line there at ryan.phillips@nbc.com. It's always my pleasure to be involved. I always thank you for the opportunity for the last decade or so to speak. Our preparation is important. Whether or not we have to put that into play, we'll see. But we're already a step ahead of the game if we're thinking today about what we'll do tomorrow, especially August, September, and October. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Always informative and really, really well delivered. It looks like you do this for a living, right, Ryan? And you can catch Ryan obviously on NBC6 throughout the day. So thank you again, and I know there's a long-standing relationship there with Wendy. So thank you for brokering his involvement in this amazing workshop. In a moment, we're going to ask our partners from the county to chime in. But we do have the mayor's video queued up, so did want to squeeze that in. It's a perfect setup for our county emergency operations department. So run the video, please.
Hello and welcome to today's annual Hotel Industry Hurricane Preparedness meeting. Although I can't join you in person today, I'm glad to participate virtually. Thank you, Mayor Minor, the GMCVB, and GMBHA, our County Department of Emergency Management, and the City of Miami Beach Division of Emergency Management for working diligently year-round to prepare us for emergencies. The experts you'll hear from today will dive deeper into what forecasts already predict, which is an extremely active hurricane season, with 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. But no matter the numbers, preparedness is key. It only takes one storm on the right trajectory to give us cause for concern. The importance of emergency management cannot be understated. Professional emergency managers prepare our community for threats, play a crucial role in response coordination, and make our city safe, ready, and resilient year-round. Because of this, I've directed our Miami-Dade Department of Emergency Management to increase its capabilities in preparedness support, response, recovery, and mitigation through coordination of information and resources countywide and statewide and federally if necessary. The GMCVB has a seat at our County Emergency Operations Center to provide a bridge to you, our hoteliers and industry leaders, during disasters so you get the right information at the right time to keep the guests safe and your properties able to weather storms. I especially want to thank the City of Miami Beach for hosting this crucial meeting each year for our hotel and tourism industry. Strong partnerships with our cities and hotels are key in our shared mission to ensure safety and resilience. I encourage our friends in beachfront hotels to follow the guidance of the professionals you will meet today. This meeting is just one part of our ongoing commitment to comprehensive safety for our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And as she alluded to, emergency management is of paramount importance. And as our city partners alluded to, the partnership between the city and the county is critical as well. And there's very, very close collaboration. So with that, I'd like to introduce Veronica Perez. She, in fact, is with the Miami-Dade County Department of Emergency Management, and she too will have some slides to share. So let's turn it over to Veronica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Veronica Perez, and I am an emergency management planner with the Department of Emergency Management. I wanted to provide a little bit of information, not just for you in terms of how to keep your guests safe, but also your staff who are residents of the county, as well as yourselves as leaders of the hospitality industry in Miami Beach. So my colleagues and I, we generally work out of something called the Emergency Operations Center, or the EOC. And this really is a facility where different agencies sends their representatives to really help to coordinate an emergency, right? Of course, we have we're focusing on hurricane preparedness, But throughout this presentation, I also will talk about some of the other hazards that are occurring while hurricane season is going on, right? And out of our EOC, we really carry out the principles of emergency management. Really, we try to ensure life safety, preservation of property, and protection of the environment. And hopefully, in trying to carry out these principles and the different tasks and responsibilities that we do in our emergency roles, we hope that we can continue operations, right? Now, here on this slide, this is some of the various hazards that does impact the county. During hurricane season, sometimes we have not just special events, we may have a flood of some kind throughout the season. I know that for 2021, we had Surfside, we had the potential impact of a possible hurricane that might have impacted the county, as well as the pandemic, right? So sometimes even throughout hurricane season, we are dealing with multiple different hazards all at once. Now, one thing that you do need to really stay on top of is where your business, where the hotel really is located within Miami-Dade County. We no longer have something called evacuation zones. Rather, we have something called storm surge planning zones. And it's because storm surge is really what we over here at the Emergency Operations Center really focus on. And it also helps to determine our evacuation orders. And I know that there's a question in the chat. I'm hoping that throughout this presentation, I can address that question, okay? So storm surge is the greatest threat to life and property, and it really is the primary reason why we put out an evacuation order and we ask residents to evacuate prior to a hurricane or tropical storm force winds really impacting the county, right, before it makes landfall. And upon identification of a threat in each zone, will be evacuated depending on really on the hurricane's track, the projected storm surge, and it's really independent of a hurricane's category. So to the question in the chat, you know, what category storm should I wait to evacuate? Really, it's whenever we put out an evacuation order. Sometimes an evacuation may be ordered and it's not an actual a storm that reaches category 1 or category 2, right? There could be a tropical depression might bring in a lot of water, or some other type of storm that might necessitate an evacuation order, okay? To speak a little bit more about storm surge, the reason why we worry about it, it is the #1 cause of deaths in hurricanes. It's not really the winds. We have very strong building codes here in South Florida, really due to Hurricane Andrew in 1992. And really what storm surge is, it's an wind-driven water from the Atlantic, from the bodies of waters that we are surrounded by, right? Goes on land and it drags everything out. So that's really our primary concern when it comes to a storm of some kind, like a hurricane impacting the county. Now, there's some hurricane myths, right? Like the first one, I've never had flooding in my neighborhood, so I won't evacuate. You know, every storm is different, and it doesn't have to be a hurricane to really cause major flooding. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but you know, South Florida is really porous, right? We have water coming up from underneath us, right? So we're in a very unique part of the country, and our hazards are unique too because of it, and how we deal with it really is driven because of our geography and also the potential likelihood of our storms making impact on the county. The second myth, tropical storm, category 1 storms are no big deal. Whenever I do these type of presentations, and Ryan, thank you so much for providing information on what the outlook is for this hurricane season, we do take that into consideration. We need to know what resources we need to set aside or what have you. But as I tell everybody, it doesn't matter. It only takes one, and it only has to be a tropical depression that just sits on us for a long time and rains. We are very flat, right? So on the screen there's the example of Hurricane Sandy as well as Harvey, right? That brought a lot of floods, and wind really wasn't a major issue. Now, with regards to hotel preparedness, what we really emphasize is that you really need to have a continuity of operations plans, a COOP. And as part of this COOP, you We highly recommend that you have business interruption insurance because that is a likelihood that might happen. A generator that is capable of running lights and HVAC system, your hot water, your elevator, just so your staff, as well as any visitors that have stayed behind at the hotel, have access to at least some sort of amenities. And it'll lessen the cost if costs are incurred of any sort of loss for food or other items that are really dependent on electricity. And really, most importantly, is that last bullet. You really need to have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, agreements with inland hotels on the mainland, right? Realistically, if there is an evacuation order, and Miami Beach always gets evacuated, we do not want your guests to stay in your hotel and then there's no electricity, the area is flooded, there's no way to get out. Really, we would highly recommend that if you haven't done so already, it's not too late. Take a look at your contracts, make sure that they're still valid and up to date with those other partner hotels. Now, with regards to our Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, we do have a representative from the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau who will serve as the hotel industry liaison. So any information that we are putting out, yes, we disseminate that to our media partners, but they will also disseminate it out to you guys. What we really hope that you can provide with regards to your guests is assistance with regards to travel to the airport, okay? Prior to the anticipated tropical storm force winds. In addition, reinforce that relationship with inland hotels by making sure that contracts are up to date, meet with them every single year to make sure that they can still continue to be a partner. Now, with regards to evacuating, okay, yes, we do have evacuation centers in the county, but we highly recommend that you do not evacuate hotel guests or tourists to the evacuation centers. We are a hospitality-driven county. We want our guests, our tourists, to have an amazing experience. We prefer that you recommend that you either stay inland, right, at a hotel, or to leave the county, right, to stay safe. So that way they can come back and have a great experience. Now, here we, just to kind of serve as a reminder, we have had evacuations, right? In the past, Hurricane Irma being one of them. This causes a problem, right? This is all the way from Ocala. It impacts the rest of the roadways down in the county. And Hurricane Irma back in 2017 was the largest number of individuals that we had to evacuate in recent years. We've updated this slide to represent the new numbers. We are a county that keeps on growing, as well as the clearance times. And for Hurricane Irma, we really had over 700,000 residents that evacuated. We had storm surge planning zones A, B, and parts of C that evacuated, okay? We disseminate that information. We do rely on the products that NOAA and the National Weather Service puts out, but in reality, every storm is a little different. You know, this is an estimated number of when, or let's say, of time when we think we may have, and the storm comes in a little sooner than anticipated, right? We need you guys to take into consideration not just the transportation of, you know, your guests outside of the impacted area, being that Miami Beach is a barrier island, most likely we'll have to evacuate. But furthermore, you do have staff that are residents and they need time to prepare for themselves, right? You need to give them some leeway, either decide now who's going to stay behind in the hotel while the emergency is taking place, and who will go home, and give them enough time to go home so that way they can put up their shutters, they can prepare their families as well, okay? Especially if they have to go back to the hotel, those are the first individuals that you might need to release so they can prepare their families and then go back and do their emergency functions, right? With regards to Hurricane Irma, an estimated $487 million. Of course, it caused a lot of flooding. And as Ryan said, we didn't really feel the impact. That was really other parts of the state that really felt the direct impact of Irma. We just got kind of some tropical storm force winds and what have you, and look at all of the damage that it did incur here in Miami-Dade County. So being that we want your staff, because they are residents yourselves as well, to be safe, as well as your visitors. We do have certain informational tools that are out there. On the website, miami-dade.gov/hurricane/, that's the website that will be activated at the time when we think that we're going to be impacted by a storm, okay? All of the information will be up on the website, including the hurricane guide, which has been mailed out already to over 1 million residents. So hopefully your staff has received this hurricane guide, as well as yourselves, right? Being that you are residents as well. Within the guide, there is a digital version on the actual website. You're going to have, it's provided in 3 languages. It's going to provide a disaster kit checklist, the door hanger program for those residents, maps, and bits of information and tips as to how to stay safe throughout the extent of the emergency, before, during, and after. This is probably one of the best informational tools that we have out there that we highly recommend. And those QR codes, even though they're a little blurry, they do work. I did verify that. This is the Ready MDC app. It is directly connected to our incident management platform that we use in our emergency operations center. Whenever there's an evacuation order, you can go there. It's the moment that we put it in, before the media gets a hold of it, we have that information for you. Please pass this information along to your staff, but this is also another tool that's in that hurricane guide. Those QR codes came from there that your guests can also download while they're here throughout hurricane season, if for whatever reason we were to be impacted. Other hazards that is ongoing with regards to the seasons that coincide with hurricane season. The first one is actually our rainy season, right? I did speak a little bit about our geography. We are flat. We have a lot of canals and rivers and lakes, and we have a lot of bodies of water, the Atlantic Ocean, Biscayne Bay, Miami River, that really makes an impact, right, when it comes to day-to-day flooding. The rainy season really starts mid-May. It already just began. It extends all the way to mid-October. And this is when it's more likely that we are to have heavy rains, okay? The other hazard that we have that the season actually coincides with hurricane season, it already started, we're already a month in, is really heat season, okay? What we highly recommend for your guests is that you have more water stations throughout the summer months. You have more foliage or coverage, fans, so that way your guests can cool down. We also recommend that you conduct trainings for your staff on how to identify heat-related illnesses, right? So that way your guests can have a better experience, and also for themselves as workers, right? Now, for final thoughts, like I said, it doesn't matter whether it's a Cat 1 or a Cat 5, the moment that evacuation order gets put out, please be mindful of it. Please evacuate the area. Also allow your staff to have enough time to prepare, and always pay close attention to all of this information that we're putting out via our Ready MDC app, as well as our website. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys. I'll stick around till the end as well for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Veronica, thank you so much. And obviously, strong takeaway that the shelters are not designed for tourists. And as much as we would love to keep them in our community, typically the best plan of action is to have them go back home, unfortunately. So let me transition to the City of Miami Beach, and I want to give Sherry Lipner, who's with their emergency management division, lots of credit. I think we would all agree she's been kind of the driving force of these annual gatherings. So she would be too humble to take that credit, but I do want to give her an extra recognition because she's been with us from day one. So Sherry, thank you so much for doing what you're doing, collaborating with the county, obviously the Hotel Association, ourselves. So with that, no pressure. I just set you up for an amazing presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Rolando. And thanks to everybody who's participating today. This is really important. Yeah, I enjoy planning this whole thing every year because I feel like we're all friends and we all have a very, very important thing to share, important information. Give me just a second. I'm going to share my screen. I think you can see it. Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning still. My name is Sherry Holbert-Lipner. I am the Deputy Emergency Manager for the City of Miami Beach. A lot of stuff that was already covered in other people's presentations are going to be covered here as well, but I think a lot of it is really important. I know all of you know that once I start speaking, those of you who have been through this before, we give you direct information to help your property, especially in the event of a large storm. And it looks like this is going to be quite a season. Again, we'll start with the discussion of evacuation. There was the question before, and I think Veronica handled it very well about Hurricane Irma. That the impression was that the call to evacuate was done last minute. It was not. Irma intensified to a Category 4 storm very, very quickly. We were already mobilized. We were already the county. The county tiers the way they do evacuations. The first group of individuals that are concentrated on for evacuation are those special needs people. People who are electrically dependent, if they're on dialysis or a respirator or something like that. You don't want them hunkering down in their homes if the power goes out. So the first group of people are the special needs people who are pre-registered to be taken care of by to be put in medical shelters, medical evacuation centers, and find other assistance for them. That's a big program that the county has. That's the EEAP program. If those of you find that any of your guests seem to fit that bill and you're not sure if they can seek proper shelter, you can call 311 to let them know that you have a guest who seems to have either very significant mobility issues or is of very special need and seems to need some additional medical assistance if you call 311. But as Veronica said, Miami Beach is in a storm surge planning zone. The storm surge planning zones are what trigger our evacuations. The photo that you see in this picture was taken just before Hurricane Irma. Those are hotel guests who made their way to one of our evacuation pickup spots. They're all over Miami Beach. This one is in front of the Art Deco Welcome Center on 10th Street at Ocean Drive. We don't want to see this. The Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau doesn't want to see this either, because these are guests that were staying in a nice hotel, enjoying themselves. As you can see, the weather's gorgeous in this picture, and are now going from a nice, comfy hotel bed to the floor of a gym in a high school. Not fun. That is why we encourage, if an evacuation order is issued, please work with your guests to get them either back home, to the next leg of their trip, or to somewhere out of harm's way that is not an evacuation shelter. But as I said, Miami-Dade County will ask visitors to evacuate. Actually, our special needs are the first people to evacuate. As soon as that operation is underway, they are sending the information to the hotels to start evacuating. This is a very bad map. Veronica showed you a much, much better map, but just know that Miami Beach is up here in Zone B. The very tip of Miami Beach, south of 5th and Fisher Island, are in Zone A. Chances are, if the county is issuing an evacuation order for Zone A, they will also be ordering an evacuation order for Zone B, because most of the barrier islands, even up into Broward County, are in Miami-Dade County, they're in Zone B. But what are your responsibilities as a property? Veronica touched on a lot of this as well. Making sure that you do a risk assessment now while skies are blue. Know what you're facing, not just for hurricanes. If you're prepared for a hurricane, we like to say you're prepared for pretty much anything. If you're prepared for a hurricane or a zombie apocalypse, you've got everything covered. Develop your emergency plan. Your emergency plan is very, very important, and share that plan with as many people in your organization as possible. Just because somebody wrote a plan and put it on a shelf doesn't mean that you have a plan. Knowing what your plan is, knowing what everyone is going to do is very important. Make sure that you are informing all your employees. And ideally, we would like you to create an emergency response team. And in the city of Miami Beach, we're here to help you do that. Going back to assessing your risk, it's again extremely important to know what sorts of things we experience here in South Florida. As Veronica and even Ryan alluded to, welcome to South Florida in the summertime. Anytime between 2 o'clock and 6 p.m., we are very likely to experience a torrential downpour, which will probably stop within 15 minutes. That's not necessarily a hazard. And as long as you communicate to your guests that if they don't like the weather, they just wait a minute, they'll be fine. But we do have the propensity to flood if the ground is already saturated and the tides are high, and we've had several days of those afternoon rains, and an even stronger storm comes through, there is a propensity for flooding. There's also identify potential areas of impact on your property. If you know that there's a low-lying area that tends to flood a lot, see what you as a property manager or property owner can do to mitigate that sort of impact, to see if there's a way to block flooding on a daily basis. You have to consider the financial impacts when you do your risk assessments, the severity of risk. We talk about categories, and again, we're moving, just like the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center are moving away from the cone, they're also moving away of emphasizing categories. The categories of the storm really only have to do with wind. So a Category 5 is obviously stronger than a Category 1, but a Category 1, Irma, we felt either strong tropical storm effects or Category 1 type wind effects with Hurricane Irma, and it came from the other side. It came from the west. And we still experienced, South Florida experienced 400, or Miami-Dade County, $487 million worth of damage. That's not chump change. So you need to know. Likelihood is also a factor. And with an active storm season, we can't tell you sitting here right now, we can't tell you that we're definitely going to get an impact, but the likelihood of an impact is much higher. And know your level of risk and know who the responsible party is for taking care of once a storm hits. As I said, plans are not just a book that sits on a shelf or even just a piece of paper with a list of this is what I'm going to do. You need to know who is going to take care of certain things, what they're going to do, when they should start doing it. There's lots of planning and lots of activity that can happen now as we ramp up for the season that you could do now to start to get ready for the season, and how you're going to do that. Going back to when, in the city of Miami Beach, we do a phased timeline where we make considerations of a week out of potential proposed landfall, because you really don't know exactly where and when it's going to hit. But if it looks like there's a storm that's brewing and it seems to be heading in our direction, there are things that we do. We have checklists for that. As we move into 48 hours out, 24 hours out, obviously the forecast gets much better and more pinpointy, and we can work for that. But there's stuff that we've already taken care of that we don't have to worry about. Pre-disaster planning, your policies and procedures. When you're looking at your policies and procedures, as Veronica pointed out, consider your staff. If you need staff to be there to take care of very specific things, you also have to consider that they too have their own households and their own families to consider. Try to work in time for your staff to go home and take care of what they need to take care of. Because if their mind is elsewhere, even though they're physically there and you're telling them to do something, if their mind is too busy worried about the safety and security of their own households, they're not going to be as effective an employee for you. So please consider that when you're putting together your policies and procedures, and work it down to the individual business groups that you have within your properties. The disaster declaration, knowing if there's a declaration or not, is really just for insurance purposes, but it does help when you have claims, to know when a disaster was declared and by whom. The city, our mayor within the city of Miami Beach can create a disaster that can trigger some financial compensation. The higher up you go, the better it is. The county can have a disaster declaration. The state of Florida, for insurance purposes, your insurers are going to look for when a disaster was declared by the governor or by the president. For business recovery, we hope that you know a little bit about business continuity planning and have a continuity of operations plan already in effect, and that you test that in some way, that you that employees know what they're responsible for, that you do some even something like a tabletop discussion where you just say, if this happens, what are we going to do and who's responsible for what, and listen to feedback for improvement. Once you go through a disaster, you're going to say, wow, we really didn't concentrate on that one thing. How can we improve next time? Informing your staff is imperative. Review policy and procedures with everyone, including your temporary employees and contractors. If you have contractors that are working on site, if there's construction going on, there's some very, very specific things that they have to do to clean up their site in preparation for an oncoming storm. They are responsible for doing that. This also does play into your insurance. Assign responsibilities to people within your organization to take care of certain things. Train to the tasks and responsibilities that you've assigned, and then test that, and then accept the feedback. As I said at the bottom, accept the feedback from other people within your organizations. They may have some good ideas. Know where to go for information. You need to have a trusted source for all your employees, not my Aunt Edna just texted me and said that the sky is falling. That doesn't work. If you are getting information from Miami-Dade County Department of Emergency Management, or from the City of Miami Beach, or from the Hotel Association, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau, those are trusted sources of information. And that's where you know how you should act. There are a lot of weird little YouTube sites out there, and other storm tracking applications that I don't think they may have some good information, but they are not your reliable sources. So please, and have an established means of communication that everybody knows. If I get a text from my HR department, I know that that's actionable information for me. And develop your emergency response team. That's really the whole reason why you're listening to me today, is the development of your emergency response team. These are the people, this is the group of people identified from your property that in the event of a category gazillion storm that we have to evacuate the island, these are the people that under our tiered reentry plan will be allowed back in with proof of who they are, to do damage assessment on your property, get back into your property and reopen. But they do more than that. They are also your go-to team for emergencies. We recommend 5 to 8 team members, depending on the size of your property. If you have a large property or multiple properties, obviously the team can be larger. Everybody on that team is appointed by management. They represent various departments within your property. We recommend for sure somebody from management, someone from human resources, and someone from your engineering staff in particular. You may also want to have somebody from F&B because, and we don't recommend sheltering in place within your properties, especially if you're right on the ocean. But if you do have a team of people that are hanging back, it's very helpful to have somebody from F&B who can feed those people and make sure that it's food that may not require any sort of electricity to heat up. They need to be, if anybody needs to be familiar with your disaster plan, it's your emergency response team. As I said, these are the people who can perform a damage assessment coming back into the city. They will be allowed in some cases, depending on how bad the damage is, they can be allowed in before our residents are even allowed back in. So they will be performing damage assessment. They'll be the ones who can turn off and turn on your utilities. which is why we recommend your electrician, somebody from your engineering department, someone who has some structural knowledge of the building. So if there needs to be some shoring or something, if there's significant damage, structural damage to the building, they have to A, recognize it, B, take the initial steps to protect the building and work from there. And of course, you'll be communicating with the city and the city's building department if there is additional damage. And these are people who are designated all sorts of responsibilities. These are the people who will be communicating with other people within your organization about what to do. And we train for that. That's what we do. We are here to offer you emergency response team training. I know it's really scary to see that it's a 24-hour course. It is 24 hours of your life that I promise are worth it. We offer it in two forms. Right now, we're offering hybrid training, which is 8 hours of online training that you could do as independent study. And once you're done with that, you can then come in for in-person training for 16 hours, which we usually divide up in 2 8-hour sessions. We can also do it in 4 4-hour sessions. If we do the entire course in person, we can do 6 4-hour sessions or 4 6-hour sessions total. And we work around your schedule. We offer them on the weekends, we offer it in evenings and during the week. So once we get a group of people, and the minimum would be 10 people, once we get a group signed up and registered for the course, we will work around your schedule to provide it. And here are the things that you learn within the 24 hours. Everything from disaster preparedness, team organization, disaster psychology, which is extremely important. You as a team, as an ERT, will be getting the brunt of a lot of things that can be very psychologically taxing to you, and you're also going to have to provide some support to your team members. Organization and management, medical operations, not just basic first aid. We also teach CPR, hands-only CPR, and some stop the bleed protocols, which is also important if, God forbid, you were in an active shooter situation, which I'm biting my tongue while I'm saying that. I hope that never happens to you. You'll learn how to conduct damage assessments and certain things like fire suppression and light search and rescue. All important things for your group. So what your responsibility is to update the form. Many of you already have forms on file. If there is any information that has been updated, a phone number, a new person on the team, please refill out the form to provide that information to us. We maintain a database. We share it with no one. So anybody who is concerned that we have your information, we only have your information for purposes of knowing who your emergency response team personnel are, and if they need to get back on the island, that we can identify them and get them to your property to do what they need to do. This is more or less what the website looks like, the web page looks like. It'll say re-entry after evacuation at the top of the page. Our website is Miami Beach, all one word, miamibeachfl.gov / well, the / isn't the important part. If you put in in the search bar that you're looking for re-entry, it'll take you to this page. But you will need documents to prove. The people that are members of your emergency response team will need the documents to prove that they are who they say they are, that they work, that they have their driver's license, or a proof of employment. That would include the credentials from your employment, a letter on employee letterhead, a pay stub, something like that. We don't need to know how much someone gets paid, but just that they do work for your organization. And sometimes you may have a work order or something to say, look, I am required to come back and do damage assessment. As much as you can bring when you come back. Hopefully this won't ever happen, but we all prepare just in case. Hotels and condominiums have 2 separate registrations, so make sure that you're filling out the right form for your team. This is a close-up of what the types of documents that are required. Do the best you can to provide as much proof as possible that you need to be here. these are our general messages, which is, I'm just reiterating what everyone else has said. Make sure you have a plan. Build a kit. This is for your own personal and also for your team to build a kit and to stay informed. Your plan should include how you're going to evacuate. In the case of guests, if you have a sister property or you have a memorandum of understanding with another hotel on the mainland to transfer your guests there, that's important. Know where your employees, at least your essential employees, are going to be, so you can contact them and have contacts. For your own personal planning, you should have a meeting place if you get separated. Know what your children and your pet, what's going to happen with your children and your pets and elderly members of your household as well. Building a kit. On our website, we have a list, a suggested list. All lists that you find for any of these emergency kits are all suggestions. You know what you need best. We put water, medicine, and first aid at the very, very top. These are things you would very likely have to have with you no matter what happens. Everything else is kind of extra, but some people cannot live without certain things. And sunscreen and a means of staying cool are also very, very important. And stay informed. Like I said before, reliable sources only, not the tweets that you're getting, not random texts from friends. Check in with local news. Check in with NBC6, for example. The X and social media feeds that are coming from the city of Miami Beach, from Miami-Dade County, the information that's on the Ready MDC app from Miami-Dade County, the information that's coming from the National Weather Service. These are all reliable sources. We in the city of Miami Beach have an alert system. We urge your concierges to register for this. You just have to text the word MB Alert to 888-777. You will get text alerts when there are issues that you need to be aware of, and where the city is pretty good about not bombarding you with it. A lot of it is traffic. Also, if you also text MB traffic to 888-777, I know that's the bane of everyone's existence is traffic. You also get information on traffic snarls within the city as well. So if you have any questions for us in the Division of Emergency Management, here's our contact information, dem@miamibeachfl.gov. The phone number is 305-673-7736. We do provide that ERT training for primarily hotels and properties within the city of Miami Beach. However, if you are a hotel in Surfside, Sunny Isles, or any coastal community, we will work with you. If you are a sister property to a hotel that's within the city of Miami Beach, we will work with you as well. So I thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Rolando. Thank you.
Sherry, thank you so much. And as you can see, the city of Miami Beach has a very, very comprehensive plan in place. And again, Sherry's been leading that charge for quite some time. And Sherry, by the way, does that ERT training include zombie apocalypse? Do they account for that in that ERT training? Hope
it absolutely does. One of our trainers is kind of obsessed with that sort of thing, so she will be mentioning that a lot if they take the class.
Well, hey, I've been monitoring the chat. There's been some great questions and some quick responses from Veronica at the county. Obviously, the city team's been responding. So I think we've addressed all the questions in the Q&A. And I don't see anything else coming in. There's some great links in there. Obviously, we want you to take advantage of on how to connect with some of the things that both Sherry and Veronica were speaking of. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David to kind of close out the program along with Wendy, and then we'll wrap this up. David.
Thank you, Rolando, and thank everyone for staying on a few extra minutes. Like I said, this recording will be sent to you. I really encourage you to have your staff sit down either at a laptop or in your conference room and watch the recording and have those discussions. You need to have an emergency response team, especially on Miami Beach, to be allowed to get back onto Miami Beach. So those are some really critical things. Great information for you to tap into. And just for, as we prepare for everything, do remember the Miami Beach Convention Center is going to be a very busy summer. And so have that schedule. You may have a guest in your hotel that is attending a convention, that the convention planner may cancel the meeting. And we'll be talking with you about that throughout this whole next couple of months. But the confusion of, is a convention being canceled? Is your in-house meeting being canceled? Do your salespeople have the tools needed to make sure they're educating? And do you as a hotel have all the knowledge of if there's a threat next week, you need to immediately think about the convention or the small meeting that you have in-house next week and begin that discussion. No one wants cancellations, but you do have to have a plan to make sure we're communicating, and we'll do our part for the major conventions that are at the Miami Beach Convention Center over the summer. So I encourage you to use today as just a beginning point to learn to build your team around this, and make sure that everybody on your team is on the same page, and work with these amazing resources from the county and the city. Wendy, I'll throw it to you for any closing remarks.
I'm just so impressed with all the presentations today. And we have so many great partners together. And I want to give, I should give everybody my cell phone, right? Because nobody, I don't know, 305-282-2812. Just really, this is great leadership, great involvement from the county and city of Miami Beach. And I think we're ready.
Okay, everyone. So thank you for your time. Do get this link soon and do share it with your staff, and do make sure you download all these different website links that will be useful information. With that, Godspeed. Let's hope that this is all great preparation and not needed, but there will be some events that will create a lot of confusion, and the more information you have, the better you'll be able to serve our guests. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day and rest of the week.